And definitely, I think the challenges emanating with Section 1K emanate from a deep-seated problem that we have when it comes to developing, legal infrastructure, legal instruments, developing the Constitution. And we see the same behavior being replicated with Amendment Bill number 1, which was yesterday voted for by the Senate. And we also see the same behavior with Constitutional Amendment Bill number 2, which is currently being sponsored by ZANU-PF because it favors their political positions. And we understand fully well that whatever provisions are going to be amended under Constitutional Amendment Bill 1 and everyday citizens, irregardless of the fact that you participated in the process of having those positions echoed in the Constitution, whether or not anyone asked you, whether or not anyone invited you to make a contribution, whatever are going to be the contents of those provisions are going to affect you. So it invites a broader conversation around, do citizens matter in any of these engagements? Or as soon as political parties have the power to do whatever they want, they're just going to do whatever they want, irrespective of what the electorate has to say. So I really appreciate the background that was given by Professor Lovmo Maduku, in which he talked about how we had this recalling system coming into effect. Again, it speaks to how it was influenced by a political decision. Someone gets upset and they decide to amend the constitution of the whole country, and it affects everyone. We see this being used with Nyaradzi Gwisai. We see this being used with Arnold Tsung. Conversation around recalls is not one that is very unique. I think it has been happening for the longest time possible, and it's very important for us to understand that because it has been happening for the longest time possible, it's very important for us to appreciate that it's not something that is new, and it's something that will potentially keep on happening. So that having been said, it's important for us as citizens to come to a point where we understand the impacts or the in terms of how they participate in the electoral process. So it's very important for us to understand that because of this recalling system that has happened from 2020 up until now, it has been very unique in the context that people like the amount of people who have been recalled at the same time, there were so many. That's number one. And number two, we saw some sort of seat fraud, some sort of seat to another party, and that became very confusing for a lot of people. I recall having conversations with ordinary people trying to ask and find out, like, what does that mean? Because initially when the recalls used to happen, the seat would go to that party, but now seats are like literally being transferred to another party. And there is a lot of legal meandering that's happening, and citizens don't actually understand what's happening. So this in particular takes away trust from the system on the part of the electorate. It also takes away the integrity of the electoral democracy. Because now when we look at how parliament is constituted, we look at parliament having ZANU-PF MPs, and then we have MPs that got seats from those who were recalled. And these MPs are not representing anyone because they do not have the electorate backing what they are saying. We push this in terms of now putting in place legislation. If these MPs cast a vote for a particular piece of legislation, are their votes going to be effective? Because we understand that they are there to party, but not on the ticket of the people. Who in essence are they representing? So I think that it then takes away the powers of the people to be able to make.
I think you have made the point, and I think you've raised very, very critical points there, and I can see that you are also concurring with some of the views that have been shared by Professor Maduku. I want to ask you a question, Namatai, which I point because on your account you no longer have a lot of time. What do you want to happen? What do you think should be done about this provision? It's there in our law right now. What do you think should be done?
All right, thanks very much for the question. So I think what should be done in this particular context is to have an alignment the Constitution to the Electoral Act. I think there is a very genuine misalignment between the recalling clause in the Constitution and the Electoral Act. And this is what is taking away the credibility from our electoral process. It's very important for us at this moment to start embarking on a consultative process to establish a better recalling system, one that is endorsed by the electorate and not one that is being forwarded and sponsored by political parties. Because at the end of the day, during election season, then they are dumped. From then onwards, it's up to the parties to do whatever they want, however they please. The electorate should be involved at all of these levels, and it's very important for us to embark on a process that consults them on how we can establish a better recalling system.
In other
citizen-driven constitutional change. I think one of the things that we have, number two, is that the process is not citizen-driven. It is sponsored by the executive and it is sponsored by politicians. I think those are very, very powerful questions that you're asking. And I am one of those, because through implementation, we are able to learn what works and what does not work. And I think this particular provision has been implemented, and we have seen it does not work because it wreaks havoc and it undermines the electorate. Therefore, upon that premise that such has been implemented and we have seen that it does not work, we can actually then have a citizen-driven process of trying to make it into something that works and something that actually serves the people. It is different from those provisions of the Constitution that have not been implemented, and yet already provisions include, that provision that speaks into, the appointment of vice presidents. We have never seen it work, but already it's being chopped out of the Constitution. So I think that the most important thing is to have learned the lessons like we have in this instance, and then amend from an informed perspective. And this is what the broader civic society movement has been echoing out.